Thank you for tuning in again for this video. In this episode, I will try to explain some of the changes applicable to those who have temporary protection status in Slovakia, otherwise known as dočasné útočisko, or in its literal English translation as temporary refuge. If you are a Ukrainian or citizen of a different country who has obtained this status, you sure might be wondering what will happen once temporary protection in Slovakia or across the EU will cease being provided. The current changes to our Act on the Residence of Foreigners are meant to solve this situation. As a result, the changes stipulate as follows. First of all, once temporary protection will cease being provided to you, it will actually remain valid for a whole other year. That is, it will give you a year to figure out whether you'd like to stay in Slovakia, move to a different EU country, move to Ukraine, whatever. That said, you're also given the option to change to temporary residence under a simplified procedure. What does the simplified procedure mean exactly? Well, you will be able to visit the foreign police, bring required documents that I'll explain just now, and if your application is complete and there's no reasons why the residence shouldn't be given to you, your card will be changed to temporary residence. Now, as for the documents, you are required to bring the application form, your passport, document on accommodation. This will most usually be an affidavit by the property owner stating that they will continue providing you with accommodation. Then, a criminal record from your country of origin. In most circumstances, this will be from Ukraine. It does need to be an apostilled criminal record translated into the Slovak language. And then, as the last document, you need to submit some kind of proof of the activity that you've been doing in Slovakia to prove the purpose of your residence. In most instances, people are here either as students, as employees, or as entrepreneurs. Therefore, I will only explain the exact documents required for these three categories of people. Firstly, employment. If you are an employee, there is a simplified procedure. You will only need to go to the social insurance agency and obtain a document confirming your employment status. If you're doing business, you're actually the one category of people who are exempted from bringing these documents, provided that you are already registered with the trade licensing office or you have a valid company, which is then reflected in the business register, or perhaps you are in a different kind of register because you are doing a self-employed activity which would not fall under trade license, or in other words, should not. In these circumstances, you are not bringing a document. Lastly, for students, please know that it suffices if you bring confirmation on acceptance to study, although especially if you've been studying at a university for a longer time, such as 2 years, we also recommend bringing with you confirmation on current attendance of studies, making sure that that document is not older than 90 days, just as all documents are required to be. Once you submit this application, the foreign police will decide within 60 days and merely send you a simple confirmation stating that your application was accepted, and then they will issue you a new card which will now be temporary residence, and from that moment on, all of the rules applicable to you will be in accordance with those for temporary residence, even those which have obtained the residence by a different means. In every sense of the word, you will be looked upon as a person who has temporary residence for their respective purpose, employment, study, special activity, and so on. As mentioned before, these changes in the law are meant to give guidelines for sorting out the situation for those who have temporary protection status once this status will cease to be given out or cease to be valid. However, the good news is that actually these changes in the law stipulate that one may possibly apply or rather change their status from temporary protection to temporary residence already immediately from the moment that these changes in the law become effective, that is, from the 15th of July onwards.